Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life podcast. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. I hope the birds are singing and the wind is at your back. I got a great show for you today, everybody, coming all the way from across the pond. I have with me the incredible Marieke, and I am thrilled to introduce you to her. She's a visionary in the field of psychedelic assisted coaching from the Netherlands with a profound belief in turning potential into reality. Marieke guides individuals in overcoming personal growth, barriers, and exploring the limitless possibilities within themselves. Drawing from her extensive experience as a psychedelic assisted coach at The Matter, Marieke has been transforming lives since June of 2018. Her innovative approach is further enriched by her role as a trainer and coach with Mindwork Productions, where she has been a freelance coach since September 21. Her professional journey is distinguished by her previous leadership roles in human resources, including senior HR positions at adidas, Nutricia, and Reebok Asia Pacific. And I kind of have a fond feeling for someone who has that much understanding of relationships. It sounds like human resources is a way in which you really have to understand relationships and points of view and awareness. And Marieke, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you, George. Thanks for having me on this show. Really, really excited. So nice meeting you and your listeners, of course.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I'm stoked you're here. I'm a huge fan of psychedelics, huge fan of change and relationships and
Mm.
awareness. And maybe you could just fill in some background. Like, have you always been sort of an explorer? Have you always been curious, or how did you get here?
Um, I believe I am. I've always been really curious. Even as a child, I was always sort of like looking for things or finding things like little
Yeah.
treasures. And also, like, before my birthday, I would just try to look for my gift, or even for my brother and sisters. So I've been really, really curious all my life, actually. And I think it started like, well, like I said, as a child growing up, and but I've always sort of liked to see if there are other things, or if things could go a little bit different than everybody else was doing it. Because I thought, well, I know that, I seen that, maybe there's more. So every time, and I just sometimes also a bit tiring because you're always looking for stuff. But
Totally.
no, I really like that. And yeah, it started like when I finished school. I think that was a bit of a drag, but when I then at certain point I thought, okay, let's do something. Went for jobs, and there weren't really fulfilling. So I decided to go to the US as a nanny for a year, and I thought, let's try that.
Yeah.
And that was fun. It was really a lot of fun, but it also gave me sort of an insight. Okay, I need to do something else, and with my life. And then I went back to school, did HR, because I thought, okay, I think I have some sort of, there's something there. So I went for that. And when and that was also a funny thing, because when I finished my study, I was like, okay, so what am I going to do next? And I remember I visited a friend. He was working for Cirque du Soleil,
Hmm.
and I thought, well, maybe I'm just going to work for Cirque du Soleil without any thought or reason or whatsoever. And it just happened. I was offered the job, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I remember my first working day, standing at a premiere party in Zurich, in Switzerland, and it was my first working day, and I'm like, I can get used to this. So that was really fun. And sometimes I forget this, but I think in general, I get the feeling like, if you are open and curious, there's so much more possible, or there's so many things possible that even surprises you or amazes you. So that's what I really, really like. And I think that's sort of, maybe it's in my DNA, I don't know.
Mm.
But it feels like a natural thing for me to always be curious and to see what else is there, or what else is possible, or to be playful. Yeah, that's that, I think, and it gives me also lots of energy.
Yep.
How's that for you?
Yeah, I agree. I think there seems to be this sort of Ariadne thread that runs through the tapestry of all the people I've been talking to. And it is this idea of the curious mind, this idea of the question why. I wonder why that is. Why is that? And then the inner explorer begins to take over, and we just start sailing out into the sea of unknown and trying to figure things out. And it's so interesting to get to hear people's stories and how they've traveled out in the
Yeah.
external world. And then it seems like on some level, the trip into inner space, which through psychedelics, or maybe it's breath work, or everyone, there's lots of different ways in order to investigate the inner terrain. But I think those two things are connected, right? The outer and the inner, like we're searching for stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think what you said about searching, or sort of sailing in the
Yeah.
unknown, I love that. But the thing is, we well, and that is also that I see in myself, is that we tend to, our brain is so much focused on predicting, and
Mm-hmm.
is so scared to just jump, or to see what comes up. And I mean, I have the same, of course.
Yeah.
um, but I also notice, if I'm able to sort of let that go, and to trust, it's like sort of laying on your back in the ocean, and sort of float, and see what shows up. But it can be really scary for people. And I mean, I see
Yeah.
that, of course, in psychedelic journeys. It's also
Mm.
sort of like, okay, let's fall, let yourself fall back,
Yeah.
backwards, and just sort of trust that there's something there. And even if there's nothing there, to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of I one of the ways in which I fell in love with psychedelics was this feeling of being out of control and it being okay. And
Hmm.
like just like I it all makes sense. I can't explain it, but it all makes sense,
Yeah.
and like there's a certain sort of freedom that comes from seeing the doors of perceptions cleansed in a way. You know what I mean by that? Like is that too
Absolutely.
abstract?
No, no, it's not. And it moves me when you talk about it like that, because it straight away gives me that feeling like, yes,
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. It's like we're so used to think about all sorts of stuff, like, okay, is this right? Or how do I feel
Mhm.
about this? Even during a psychedelic journey.
Yeah.
But I also feel sometimes that I'm in that I'm in that space, like you were talking about. And I'm like, okay, so I need to sort all these things out. And then
Mhm.
it's like, there's nothing to sort out, because it's all fine.
Yeah.
And then it's and feels like sort of a calmness coming over you, like it's all good.
Mhm.
And that space, I find, I mean, of course, I'm also in spaces that are like bumpy, or roller coasters, or things like that. But I think that for me, there's always a place to go, and to sort of be there with yourself, trust yourself, and feel it's okay. And what I really like, and you said it also in the introduction about potential, because I'm a big fan of looking at your potential. And because what happens in psychedelic journeys. I'm sorry, I'm jumping right into it,
Please
but
do it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
it's like, what I really find very interesting is that in general life, people focus constantly on what is not possible, or what's blocking them, or they know exactly what it looks like, what it feels like. It's like they're living that part, and that's why things are not
Yep.
moving. So they're focused so much on that blockage. And with the psychedelic journey, and of course, it's not always like that, but it is possible to look beyond,
Mhm.
and to get a sort of look and feel of what it can be like. But then, at least, so that's what I always do before a psychedelic journey. I invite people to think about, okay, so you do know already what's not working. What would you like to look at? Or, what would you like it to be? So what's your dream? What would you like? And most of the time they're not even huge things, but more sort of like a personality thing, or I want to be more
Yeah.
open, or I want to be more curious, or I want to be better connected to my feelings and my emotions. And then I sort of try to ask them to get a visual, or get a feeling for that, and then it's possible. And that's what I think, it's such a beautiful part of working with psychedelics, because then it makes it so much easier to do something with that feeling, and to, when you're out of that journey, to also know, okay, I can do this, or this is what I really like. Or, and sometimes it's not so much in, it's not in materials, but it's much more in, I want to feel this way, I want to feel happy, or I want to feel confident, or I want to enjoy life more, that sort of stuff. And yeah, and if I get the opportunity to be there and to support someone in that, every time I'm like, I'm amazed. And that, and I feel humble, and honored is not the right word, but especially humble, that I'm able to be part of that, and to hold the space for someone, and give this person the opportunity to go beyond and to see what's possible. It's like, that's magic, that's beauty, that's love, that's, oh, I can go on. You know what
I
it feels
do.
like.
It almost sounds like, first off, that was a lovely description. I love the way in which you explained that. And when, as you were talking about it, I got this vision of being the intermediary, like the person, like if someone comes to you, it's like you're introducing them to themselves in a way. You know what I mean? To a part of them they haven't met for a while, or maybe they've forgotten about, or
Mm,
when you talk about potential, it sounds to me like you are reintroducing someone to themselves in a way in which they haven't seen themselves in a long time.
yeah. And sometimes people, when they hear potential, maybe they confuse it with
Mhm.
ambition, or
Ooh,
material, or
yep.
um, and that's not for me. That's not the case. I mean, so it's really nice that you emphasize that it is like having a look at yourself
Yeah.
with all different aspects, and it could be bliss, it could be love, it could be stars and rainbows, but it could also be uh, pain or sadness, or some dark parts, that or sort of became a part of you during your childhood. I think it's such a beauty to look at all parts, and to give them also space to show up, even if it's really scary and difficult, but to at least have a look at it, like, what is this? And during the years I'm supporting people during a psychedelic journey, I often think, or get the feeling, that it's most important that these parts are seen, and
Mm,
that when we accept those parts, that instead of fighting it, or like trying to
yeah.
suppress them, sort of accepting, hey, okay, that's also a part of me, and maybe I'm not too thrilled about it, but hey. Um and I think, yeah, so like you get to know yourself in a better way, um or in an expanded way.
Yeah.
And but I really believe that the beauty is in accepting and seeing those parts. And especially, like, some people are scared to face their fears.
A lot of
Of
people.
course, yeah. And what I do during a psychedelic journey is ask them to, when especially sometimes I also work with MDMA and psilocybin, because then first it's easier to talk about certain stuff. You know, you'll be
Mhm.
able to connect with the emotions. So, for example, when it's easier to describe it, but you know that's also sometimes possible with psilocybin, is to really look from a distance and say, okay, so this is the fear. What do you see? Or what do you feel? What does it look like? Because instead of standing from a distance,
Yeah.
you're facing it. So you get a better understanding, because this part also wants to be seen. And the amazing thing is, when you've seen it, then usually you think, what is this? You know, why am I so afraid of it? So we created something in our mind and made it so big, or in our mind, or maybe even in our subconsciousness. But there, it sits in, we're suppressing it. So when you see it, and then people are like, actually, it's not such a big deal, because it's just parts of feeling. And so I really ask them to stick with it. You know, stand strong and look at it. And the mistake people sometimes make is that they lose themselves in it. And like Joe Dispenza said, you know, if you sit in a jar, you can't read the label. And I think it's exactly the same also with fears. But you know, like you said, it's like getting to know yourself in all different aspects. And I think knowing who you are and accepting who you are, and you know, maybe there's always work. There's always work to do. But I think by getting to know yourself better, I think life becomes easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that for you? What's your experience? Look, after your psychedelic journeys.
Yeah, I echo that. I think that for me on my personal journeys, like I've been able to go back and forgive myself. It's almost in a third. I love the term awareness because you, for me, and I think a lot of people, well, I don't know about other people. I know about me. So it seems to me that you can go back and revisit emotionally charged times in your life, and you can visit them without shame. You can visit them without judgment. And it's in that moment you go, oh, I was just a kid, man. I didn't know any better. Hey, fuck that guy, or like things happen and you're like, wait a minute. You
Yeah,
know what? You know why my parents, why they didn't do anything? Because they were scared. They didn't know what to do. It wasn't they were mad at me. They didn't know what to do. And in those moments, something frees up in you. It's like that thing that you have held down for so long, like the monster in your closet. Like, keep that thing shut.
yeah,
You realize it's just me. It's me making. I made it worse. Just like just look at it. And there's something to be said when you're forced to look at something. And no judgment, just stare at it. And there's a weird sort of awareness that happens in these journeys
mm,
and these things that happen where you just sit with it and eventually it fades. And with it fades the shame, with it fades the guilt, and there's room to grow now there. That's what it seems
yeah,
like. What do you
yeah,
think?
yeah. No, absolutely. Like guilt it can be a big thing,
Yeah.
and but yeah, it's like sit with it and or look at it,
Mm-hmm.
um and sort of accept, like you're saying, also you get a better understanding of why things happened, or why,
Yeah.
like you were saying about your parents. Or yeah, what I find interesting is that you get like you know, the psilocybin sort of makes your normal thinking patterns less active, and that you get
Mm-hmm.
sort of a view from a different angle on topics in your life. And that gives like nice insights of, okay, this is why I'm doing this, or becoming more aware of my own behavior, or
Yep.
looking at like my family, or yeah, it gave me a lot of um, sort of step back and look at
Mm-hmm.
myself and learn from that. Um, And like what I hear you saying as well is to be okay with it, to say, yeah, they did their best. Or I what I saw also is like that you were able to see some sort of like topic or element that has been part of the family,
Yeah.
so that you're able to sort of understand why things were happening this way, or why am I doing this, or and while you face it, I have the feeling you're able to break it, to break that sort of pattern, or
Yeah.
theme, or that is part of the family, that you're able to say, hey, okay, I see that this was happening. People were not able to, I mean, they just carried on, and their father was doing it, and or her mother, whatever.
Yeah.
um and so to say, okay, so that is for me the, like, the key, I think, with psychedelic journeys, is to become aware of what happened, or what is there, and to be okay with it. And that last part is not so easy, I should say. I mean, one time it's like, okay, I've seen it. Because that's also a question I often get, like, okay, so when I do this journey and I get all these insights, um, do I change afterwards? And sometimes people are kind of scared, that
Yeah.
their partner is sort of like, okay, what can I expect when somebody comes back home again? Um, yeah, yeah, and so it's not like when you do, and I'm sure you talked about this before, but what I've seen is that when you do a psychedelic journey, you sort of like create a new connection, like a new pathway or a
Hmm.
new way of thinking. But that little path was only walked once during that psychedelic journey.
Right.
And so when you get out of the journey, I believe it's important to maintain it, if you want it, if you really want it, to
Yeah.
maintain it by staying close to yourself and to take good care of yourself, but also to think, okay, so I got this insight, I want to do things differently. Let's make sure I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I it seems to me that for my personal uses, I'll do like a big dose and then I'll follow it up with micro doses for like
Mm,
I'll do, I don't know, 7 grams or something like that, and then follow that up for the next 3 months with micro doses and then do like another big dose. But I think that that micro dose allows you to remain familiar with the environment, and you can still have time to integrate those big changes that happened. But I want to dive back to, sometimes you said that the 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 spouse or the partner will be like, what's going to happen to them when they come back? Like, what is it like to deal with a team that comes to you? Like, obviously they're working on things and you've seen patterns, but what is it like to work with people on these substances, Marieke? Like, that's something I know I don't know about, but I think a lot of my listeners are curious to understand a little bit about this sort of intricate, intimate relationship with which you're holding this space for these people. Like, that's a pretty incredible position to be in, and with that comes a lot of responsibility, right?
mm, yeah. Yeah. So, well, when I work with a group of people, and I must say, when they meet each other, it's not that they know each other.
Right.
So because I tried that before with teams,
Mm,
um, and I'm not so sure about that. So I think it's important that people feel really, and well, I should also say I've also had some small groups of friends, and they knew, but they felt
right.
really comfortable with each other. So I most important is that people feel okay with each other. And in a way, sometimes it's helpful if somebody doesn't know the other person,
Mm,
maybe just from meeting. But
yeah.
it's funny that most of the time, all the like work, what kind of work people do, it's not important. So when people come here, they've seen each other online once, and they know a little bit like where they're from, and do they have a partner and things like that. But for the rest, it's not so important. And the
Right.
funny thing is that if they come here for a weekend, like a 3-day retreat. Um, they get to know each other really, really well, but they have no clue what somebody's job is, for example, because that's not
That's beautiful.
important. Yeah.
Right.
And they're talking about stuff that like is like the core, it's like most important. It's like being
Hmm.
and things like that. um, and so what I do with the group is when they come here, they get to know each other a little bit. So they introduce themselves a bit better, and then and I always ask them, like, what do you want to get out of this? What brought you here? What is what you want to look at? Because I think the intention of a journey is really important, and it's important, yeah. Because I mean, there is like tons of things you can look at, but what is most important at that time? Um,
Yeah.
and so what I do during a journey is, um, and I do this together with my partner Eric, and most of the time we have another facilitator. So we're with the three of us, and then we have like 8 participants. Um, and what we do is, like, it starts for me that I feel, there's this little book, it's called The Gentle Art of Blessing. And
Mm.
so what I do is I bless in my mind, or I just want them to have a really insightful and valuable journey. So, out of the, and the reason why I mentioned this book is, like, this writer is talking about feeling, sending out some sort of positive energy, like, I really wish you well. And it doesn't matter if you do that with people on the street or whatsoever, but people feel that. And so this is what I also do with the journey. When we start the journey, I really wish them a well and valuable journey, and the people that I work with do the same, so people feel that, I believe.
Yeah.
And so, and what we do is we create, and I talk to everyone prior to attending a retreat, so I have an idea, like, what's happening, or what's their fear, or what do they need when they're really scared. And so
Mm.
during the journey, if somebody is going through a difficult time, we just sit next to them, and make sure that we send out some sort of positive, calm energy, because we're holding the space. And that's what we tell people also prior to the journey. Hey, like, we know that you can do this. Most important thing is trust yourself, stick to it.
Yeah.
Even if you lose yourself a bit, you can always sort of steer back to your intention and focus on that. And uh, and and we also explain them how you can sort of navigate. And it's a bit funny, like, I'm telling them, like, if it's going too fast, just ask the medicine, or the mushroom, or the truffle, please be gentle, or let's slow
Yeah.
down, or let's move a bit faster. And so within the group, everybody, of course, is a bit nervous, but they all feel safe. And I also check in with them, is there anything you need from the group? Um, so, for example, we also say we start as a group and we finish as a group. So if somebody needs to go outside, because we do the ceremony in the yurt, so if somebody needs to step out or wants to be outside for a while, it's all fine, and we will be with you. The only thing is, we will ask you to go back at a certain point, because the group will miss you, because it's really like a
Yeah.
group process. And also for us, I mean, facilitating, or for me, I speak for myself, but that I also sometimes, if somebody is going through a process, I can sometimes feel it's sort of like mirrors something, or sort of
Yeah.
triggers something in me. So that's why I believe that it's really important for facilitators also to journey and do psychedelic journeys themselves, because we all
Yeah.
have our stuff. And so, what is really important for me is to recognize, okay, this is something from me. Let's and I'm able to say, let's park this, and because today I'm here to support others and hold the space for them. Um, and the interesting thing is that most of the time people say prior, like, "Oh, I'm scared to do this in a group, um, because maybe somebody next to me is making lots of noise or is going to cry really loud."
Mm,
Um, and the interesting thing is, most of the time during the journey, it's all fine. And if somebody starts crying, then somebody else will sort of hold the space as well, or it triggers something and the other person starts crying too, and that's all fine. um, so in a group, people feel, it's important that they feel safe, and we do this as a team. um, but we also make sure that they sort of connect a little bit with each other, because they're sort of starting a group process. So they speak out their intention, and at the end of the journey, we also give them the opportunity to share a little bit about their journey, whatever they want. And sometimes people connect really well with each other afterwards, and sometimes people feel like, wow, a lot of things happened. I need some time for myself. So we also say, don't feel obligated to be socially obliged to talk to each other. Take the space, take the freedom for yourself, and everybody's fine with that. So it's like a sort of like I'm constantly with my hands
mhm,
like this, but it's like holding the space. But I feel a group is doing the same, and I must say every group is different. Like sometimes there's a group, they're like, wow, completely happy afterwards, and they're like almost friends for life.
mm.
And other groups, they're more like on their own, and on an individual, more focus. But yeah, and like 2 weeks ago, we had two couples, and they were friends. And I can also imagine doing this with people. It also makes it really special. I can imagine that, or that's what I see, that the friendship can even be much stronger because you met each other on a different level, especially afterwards. You talk about other stuff, and it's a bit like you were saying it as well. Like when you're in a psychedelic journey, everything else sort of, you sort of fall back, and everything is fine. And that can be also with friends, that you think, yeah, we're good. We connect.
It's so it's beautiful to hear, and I'm so curious about the relationships. And when you talk about groups, in my mind, you know, when I think of a group coming together and taking this particular journey into a different state of awareness for a long period of time, I'm reminded of like the Eleusinian mysteries, where people, strangers, are just coming together and they are embarking on this new way of seeing themselves and their relationship in the world. Uh, are there times at your retreat, or when you guys work, is it ever tailored, like this is a rite of passage between father and son, this group, or it's a couples group, or it's a men's group, or it's a woman's group? Do you ever break it down in that format, or is it just basically whoever decides to come?
um it's different. Like, most retreats we do are open for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's men, women, it doesn't matter. And then sometimes also we have people who ask, can we come as a group, or can we come over, or can we join, or can we create something? So
Mm-hmm.
then we make something. um, and I also organized on International Women's Day, a ceremony with only women. And I really liked that too, because there's like a different energy.
Yeah.
And also to do that on that day. And so, for example, we do it also with winter solstice. So
Mm-hmm.
we journey in the night. So usually we do it during the day, but on that day, we or nights, we do it in the night. And we do it with a group of people who journeyed here before. And we ask them, like, hey, do you want to do a journey together. We're going to do it with summer solstice as well. So we really like to sort of connect it with nature. But yeah, so it's different. It varies, and yeah, I also see that we create something together, and
Mm,
I also wanted to say to you that we focus a bit on a group of people who are not so used to psychedelics, and
mm,
so I have the feeling in the world there's a whole group of people who know this already for a long long time, and now they see that everybody sort of becomes sort of mainstream and popular to microdose and to all to do these things, which is, I think, a good thing. um, but so what we like you said in the introduction, I've experienced in the corporate world. I worked there
mm.
for a long time, and I believe that there's a big, well, need or desire
Yeah.
for that group of people to explore themselves in a different way. And so that's why we also focused in, because you have lots of organizations in the Netherlands who do this.
Yeah.
You have, and there's like, you can do it for probably 50 euros or
Yeah.
for 5,000. And we're a bit in the middle. And but we wanted to create this for people who want to get to know themselves better, but in a different way, and who are not so familiar with spiritual uh, practices, or so they, for them it's like, when they hear about this, then they think, oh, maybe I need to jump it through all sort of spiritual hoops, and I'm not aware of that, or I don't know any, I'm not into this at all, but I'm curious. So that's why we try to have a bit of, but I'm not sure if it's different, but to, like, when I started doing this, I noticed, looking on the internet, I saw lots of organizations, but nobody showed their face. So it
Mm.
was sort of like, okay, this is what we do, but you could not read, like,
Mm.
who's doing this, who is this person. And so I wanted to make sure that it becomes more normal to work on yourself by doing this. And on LinkedIn, it was, in the beginning, I sort of let likes and that sort of stuff, I just let it completely go, because it's still kind of still lots of people find it still like, oh, what is this, or they're not aware of it, or and I really would like to make sure that people see this as a another way of working on yourself. It's not a training in I don't know, like management drives or whatever, or all that sort of stuff. Like all communication skills, or um, and but it is in a way about personal leadership. But
Mhm.
maybe that term is a little bit um, used for many things. So I like what you said, like getting to know yourself in all aspects, and to sort of um, embrace all the elements in you, but also to make better use of your qualities, because people most of the time sort of uh, tell themselves, "Oh, this is not for me," or and why not if you really want it? And that's what I think is a beautiful thing of a psychedelic journey. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
long answer on your question,
It's
but
good. I love it.
it's all
Yeah.
sort of side turns. Sorry. Um, but yeah, so your question was like, why people or people do sign up. I can't remember anymore, but I hope it answered.
Yeah, of course. I'm just curious about the different people that come there, and I couldn't agree more that corporate America, or the corporate world itself, is in dire need of taking a good look at itself and trying to understand how to move forward from here. Like, for so long, it seems that we have lived in this world of, you know, growth at all costs and profit beyond that,
Mm,
and I think there's something to be said about psychedelics and identity and who you are, and especially if you're the face of a corporate world or something like that, a face in the corporate world, you have to you should be responsible for the people that work under you on some level, right? Like you should almost have to really know yourself as a person. Like and this is just me kind of just throwing this out here, but I think if you're going to call yourself a leader and you are a manager or a leader, then you should have to do some psychedelic training. You should have to know who you are before you start telling other people what to do, because it's very easy to get lost in the power and the corruption there. But I think
Mm,
the psychedelic journey has the ability to pull you back from that ego trip and be like, wait a minute, I'm actually supposed to be helping these people, not bossing them around, telling them how, giving them their identity. But I don't know. It's just my kind of thinking there.
yeah.
Is that
No.
too much? What do you think?
No, no, no. I agree. Um, so I'm a big fan of making like what you see nowadays in organizations is that people get a budget for personal
Right.
development. Let's say in the bigger companies, and I would say make a psychedelic journey a part of that. And I can imagine, of course, people would
Yes.
say, "Oh, but what about all the risks and that sort of stuff?" But you could also do like a lower dose and like what we also do a medium dose
Yeah.
and that could be really really helpful, and then you're not like out of in a different dimension, but you're able to explore yourself in a much easier way. But yeah, I totally agree. I find it, I mean, in a way, there in companies there's like yoga and
Sure.
meditation. I
It's
mean,
close. It's
so
getting closer.
we're getting there, but still, I believe it's important to, yeah, to pay much more attention to it. And I see a psychedelic journey also as mental wellness.
Yeah.
It's because we're constantly behind our screens with our phones. So your brain is constantly overwhelmed with all sorts of information. We constantly need to see this, do this. And what happens with a psychedelic journey is that everything sort of stands still. You're able to clear your mind, to connect again, and you just see, feel, and think much clearer. And yeah, so I think it's also for that really important for people in also in corporate,
Yeah.
especially in corporate environments, because in that other whole field of people, they already know how to work with psychedelics. They know, and maybe in the future is that people just do it themselves, or maybe there are different ways of maybe online that they can get a guide or whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe in the somewhere future, but um, yeah. So because also when people come here and they've been here a couple of times, and or usually it starts with a one-on-one, so an individual journey, because they're sort of afraid to journey in a group, and then
Mhm.
they're sort of curious, like, maybe I do like to get to meet more people who are doing this, and then they journey in a group. um but that's a what I wanted to say, anyway, so they get to know how it works, and yeah, I sort of lost it, sorry.
No, it's all good. It's it brings up an interesting question that, as someone like yourself that travels and speaks multiple languages, do you think that where you decide to journey, there's different aspects of the journey? Like, is it different to have a psychedelic journey in, say, California or the United States versus in the Netherlands? Like, what would be some of the similarities and differences? Or is there cultural weight that sits on you, and that there's different problems
Mm.
because of that? Or what do you think?
Well, um I think, like, I hear people talking about going to the jungle and
Mhm.
do an ayahuasca week, or um, I think it's very personal for people to decide where to go,
Yeah.
because I also believe that they are attracted, or they feel some sort of attraction, like doing it there or learning from a shaman, or finding it more interesting to do it in a certain way,
Yeah.
like a shamanic ceremony. Um, I think in and even in the Netherlands, you have all different styles. So I don't believe that much. I mean, I don't really know actually to see if the culture plays a role as well. I don't know, but I do believe that most important is that you feel that it feels right. So that means, like, when you look at somebody's website, if it feels right, if it attracts you to journey of to travel to another country and to do a journey there. So I think most important is follow your feeling, and because then it's right. Um, and for, like, if it could influence, I think, if it's a more shamanic way of doing it, that has a certain impact as well. And I must say, when I journeyed before we started our own business, we went to all different
Mm.
organizations to get some experience and to see how are they doing it and how does this feel for me. At one time was at an organization, and the group was pretty big. We're
Mm.
like, I don't know, 25 people.
That is big.
um, Also, the facility, for me, nature is a really important part to be able to connect to during a psychedelic journey, or after or before. I need nature,
Yeah.
and there was no nature. It was like in some sort of suburb with houses around it, and there was just sort of like a porch. Oh no, not really. Anyway, it was not. There was no nature. And so for me, it didn't really feel right. And it was ayahuasca, and
Mm.
I just took one cup, and I was like, this is it. I cannot go any further because I just didn't feel completely safe. um, and it all went fine, and I mean, there was no problem at all. But for me, it was like, okay, this place, for me, it's important to be in nature. So these kind of things could help, like looking at an organization and to
Yeah.
see this is for me. And if that's in the Netherlands or in California or in Costa Rica, I mean, that's personal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can also imagine if somebody has some sort of special connection, like with a country. Yeah, then I would say go for it. But to me, I must say the jungle, and it doesn't really attract me that much. Um, to be honest, I'm really much more like a comfortable journeyer, and it's not that I need to go business class, but yeah, I think I like to have some nice comfort and soft materials and nature, and that's how we build our place also. So we picked everything that we really liked. And so I wanted to, if somebody walks into our facility, I want this person to feel like, okay, I feel safe here, or it feels comfortable here. And we try this, or we do this in all different aspects. So, but if you're more adventurous and you think, oh, I would love to learn from somebody who has done this in his whole family, and like
Yeah.
is a shaman, and with all the rituals, because I think rituals are also
Yeah.
all playing a part in the journey. And if somebody really likes that, I would say follow that feeling. That's most important, I think.
Yeah.
Where do you like to journey? What is important for you during a journey?
I'm a big fan of the solo journey at my house when like
Oh yeah.
everybody's sleeping. Like for me, it's comfortable. I know I'm be safe, and like I have all my comforts here, and I agree. I think that some people enjoy the ride, and they want to be, in the depths, or the belly of the beast. And and everybody has their own, like you said, everybody has their own adventure. Everyone is called to a certain place, and you should. It's romantic, it's beautiful. And I find it so funny though, because on some level, like, what I don't want to have to like be tripping my balls off and go outside and make a right at the guy with the M16 and all these mosquito bites on me. Like, I don't want that. Like, that's too much, you know? And on the other hand, like, I definitely don't want to be in a house with a bunch of strangers I don't know and feel cooped up in there. You know, and the truth is too, at a large enough dose, the environment doesn't really matter because all of that's fallen away. You know, if you start taking some pretty big doses, you could be in the jungle in your bedroom. You know what I mean? You watch out for the
Right. Yeah.
tiger, it's coming. You know, and like that's how I like to go. I like to take big doses
Oh
and
yeah.
just live different lifetimes. You know, there's something so incredible on a large dose that allows you to see the decisions that you didn't make and see how they turned out. You know, look in the
Oh
mirror and
wow.
look at different
Yeah.
versions of yourself and be like, whoa, that was me 1,000 years ago. Or, whoa, that's a different version of me. It doesn't even look like me. Next thing you know, you've been standing and looking in the mirror for like an hour. What are you doing? Laughing? But
Oh,
it's,
funny.
yeah, I love those journeys. And I think that there's
Yeah.
so much to be said. There's so much learning that you can do if you're willing to face the uncertainty, the fear, and have a good sense of humor about it. Because it gets scary sometimes, right? Like, I know for
Absolutely.
me, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Man, I am such a dummy. Why did I do that? You know, and I heard a good quote one time, and I wish I could name the person that was talking about it, but it was a Western doctor, and he was talking to a gentleman from South America. And the guy from South America says, you know, the difference is that in the West, your drugs make you feel good and then you feel bad. Our drugs make us feel bad and then make us feel good
Mm.
afterwards. You know,
Oh, I
like,
like
it's
that.
so good, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting what you say about the high dose. I mean, I like low doses, and
Yeah, what's a low dose? Tell me
well,
what is
low
a low
dose
dose?
is for me, or maybe it's medium dose, um, like 10 grams of truffles.
Okay, that sounds like a big dose. Like, what is truffles to
Oh,
say
let's say
mushroom?
1 gram of dried mushrooms,
Oh yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
1.2,
Okay,
or 1.5,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. That's
And
a
then,
good dose,
yeah, I love it because it's not too long, and I'm able to, I don't need to sort of fly all the way out. I don't need that.
right?
And I think that I cannot find that much there. But
Mm,
when I stay a bit closer, I get the feeling like,
yeah,
okay. And I must say, I also really like 2 journeys in a row. So that's what we also do in our
nice.
retreats. First, we do a lower dose. So what I just mentioned, like the 1.5. Um, and then the next day, we do truffles. So then we do, let's say, 30 gram of truffles. So let's say 3 grams of mushrooms. And what I like also personally is that with the first one, um, you get sort of the stuff out of the way, the
Right.
clutter, the daily
Yep.
not important stuff. And then the next day you'll be, that's cleared and you can go deeper. And
Yep.
but I must also say, the other day I did one higher dose, so let's say 3 grams of mushrooms, and then the next day I did a lower one,
Right.
and that was also really, really helpful. So
Yep.
for me, it doesn't really have to be that high, such a high dose. I mean, you could also do it lower.
Yeah.
And I also liked what you said about continuing with a microdose, because then
Yeah.
it can keeps you. It sort of helps to continue walking that
Yes.
new created path, and implement it, or make it a sort of a new pattern,
Yeah.
to be helpful. But yeah, I like those medium. We call it medium doses, but
Yeah.
I like that too. It's not so hard on your body. It's a bit shorter, but it also gives you really nice, um, yeah, understanding. Sort of
Yeah.
like clears your mind. And yeah, so and it's so psilocybin is really my thing, and I really want to use this um, to create. And I was looking at your profile on LinkedIn, and reading about you. What I really like with psilocybin is to sort of create a wave of positive energy, like
Yeah,
you were saying. It's like a part, and if we're doing this all together, or everybody's working on themselves, and of course it doesn't have to be with psilocybin, but if people come to us, then we use psilocybin um, to create a bigger wave of positive energy, or to create good things in this world. That's really my goal. And to let people reconnect with who they want to be, because that's it. We can create who we want to be. We don't have to sort of like just follow the stream of what's happening and what's thrown at us, that we say, oh, okay, yeah, I need to do something with this. Okay, I'll do that. We can make choices, and to be so more aware of what we want. So yeah,
yeah.
so that's something I really want. That's my vision.
I think you're acting it out. I think that you are. You, there's that old saying that says when you're ready, the teacher will show up, and it seems to me like you're the teacher that's showing up for lots of people. It it must what sometimes it seems to me the way we move this ball forward and make the planet better is by all of us becoming the best versions of ourselves. And when someone comes to meet with you or to a retreat center somewhere and they do their own work and they go back into their community, it's almost like they're bringing water back and helping the people. Like
Mm,
it
I
kind of
like
seems like
that.
that, right?
Yeah, I like that. And I just play a small role in this. I mean, I every time when people come here, I feel well, not honored, because I don't want to use that word, but I feel humble and
Sure.
really um, thankful that they trust us, give us the trust
Yeah.
to be there and to be a part of it. Um, and I see them as playing a big role in this, because they are doing work on
Yeah.
themselves. And when I'm in that position of journeying, then I do that for myself. And when you are journeying, you're doing your part. Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes me wonder. On some level, it seems like the headlines are so clogged up with like medicinal use for certain types of ailments, or you know sometimes there's a lot of headlines about inappropriate behavior, and the people that it always seems to me that the people, like lots of people have lots of problems, and I almost think it's irresponsible for an individual to think they can help another person solve their problems. Only the individual can solve their problem.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And I think that
yes.
that's where a lot of that's where we run into problems, is it's like when the facilitator is like, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna
Mm,
fix this for you. Like, no, you're not. You're not gonna help them. Like, you're there to watch the medicine work, it seems
yeah,
like.
that's it.
Right?
Absolutely. Totally agree. Absolutely. I read this book was called Swimming in the Sacred. Beautiful book.
I can't wait to check it out.
I can't remember the author, but beautiful book. And she mentioned that um, that's why I don't really like the word healer,
Yeah.
because we're healing ourselves, and plants can help us with that,
Right.
and that's it. So I'm not playing any role. I mean, I'm playing the role of making sure that when somebody's coming over to do a journey, that they feel safe. And I sort of, that's what I tell them, like, if you see me, know that I'm from planet Earth. And I'm making sure that you feel safe, so
Yeah.
that you can explore, you can dive in, you can explore, and I hold the space for you so that you feel safe. That's all I do. And in a way, I think that's what I wanted to say earlier, is that if people done this for a couple of times, at a certain point, I think they can do it themselves.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I would say, go, if you create a nice space for yourself, maybe with a friend or somebody you trust, take a lower dose. Don't go too high, and maybe
Right.
try first, I don't know, 1 gram of mushrooms or
Yep.
even lower.
Yes. Yeah.
But you have experience, you know how to navigate, you know what it feels like when you start work when it starts working, so you're familiar with it. Then you can do it yourself. But you need to have
Mm.
some experience, you need to be okay, like issues in, like, mental issues in the family, or taking medication, or no mixing with other drugs. But if you follow those lines, then you can do it yourself, and then you don't need anybody like me. And I think that's
Yeah.
because I really like, I think I'm sometimes also a bit worried that, we get also lots of good reviews, good feedback from people.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you helped me in such a great way. And I'm like, no, 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 you did this. Yeah. And but sometimes you get the feeling like, oh, I did really great, and because that's my
Feels good.
ego.
Yeah.
And I need to make sure that my ego knows where to stay. And of course, sometimes I let that play, and run
Of
around like,
course.
oh, and then I'm like, okay, that's enough now. You know how it goes. And yeah, so, and that's fine, but people are doing it themselves. Yeah, I don't want to take any other position than, that's all. I always like to sit on the ground when people are doing a journey with the mattress on the floor.
Yeah.
Sit on the ground, and I don't want to step up or whatsoever. That's not up to me, because it's them. Everybody is able to do it themselves. Much more
That
powerful.
way more powerful. I think that speaks volumes of who you are as a person. That last piece that you said right there. It's so important that people understand that. And I love the metaphor of exploring the environment, right? Like, hey, just start off with a little bit, figure this thing out a little bit, and then you figure out what's right for you. The more you know it, the more familiar you become with the environment. Maybe you want to go off on the right, maybe you want to go off on the left, but
Yeah,
eventually you'll figure it out. But you in the beginning, it's you need someone to kind of show you the ropes. But after that, everybody's got the same tools. Everybody's got the same. Well, maybe not the same, but it's for the individual to explore. And yeah,
yeah,
it's beautiful, I think.
yeah. And if you trust yourself, I think it always comes back to yourself.
Yeah,
Stand firmly, stay with that trust, then lots of things are possible. Yeah.
yeah. It's such a solo experience. Like, you are getting to meet maybe your higher self or reintroduce to yourself on some level. And when you come out of it, isn't it interesting? The better relationship you have with yourself, the better relationships you can have with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, and I think in general, the better relationship you have with yourself, and I wouldn't say like ego
Right.
area, but more in accepting all parts of yourself. Uh, it would be, yeah, and maybe it's ideal, but that's sometimes I get the feeling like, okay, maybe when we all accept ourselves, then we die. I don't know, but I think that's what I also see with monks when
Yeah.
I hear them talk. I'm like, there's so much uh peacefulness, or I don't know the right word, but or calmness, or
Mhm.
um and I love that. And then I think maybe that's maybe that's our goal. I don't know if that's our goal, but um yeah, I also have it when I feel like that. Like, for example, if I just come out of a psychedelic journey and I feel really like at peace with myself. Um, then everything is sort of okay, and falls in place.
Yeah.
And then I know also what really is important to me. I think that's also something. Yeah, what really matters to me. That's yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's do you think we're at a sort of a precipice? Like it seems to me that it's really taken off the idea of microdosing and psychedelics and entheogens. Maybe it's the circle that we run in, and maybe because we really are familiar with it and we enjoy it and we see the positivity in our daily lives. But do you think that it's beginning to expand at a rate that is I can't think of the right word, but do you think that this wave of psychedelics is expanding because our society is in dire need of it?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. Um, well, I think we're on the right way to get that wave going and to
Yeah,
expand it. And that's what I also see with the people who come here, because all the people who know this already, they've figured that out already. But the other ones, and I wouldn't say, I want to avoid to say this is good and this is bad,
yeah, right.
because that I find also is scary. And I know this with myself as well, that I'm like, oh, I've changed, and then I'm looking at others, and they're and sort of like have being judgmental.
Hmm.
um and that's not what I believe, because one person goes faster than the other one. I also see people that I think, wow, you're such an inspiration. And uh, sharing this with the world, I find this with you as well. You're inspirational with all your energy, but also with what you want to show to other people, and what they can learn from you, and connect them with other people. But there are also people who are struggling with this, who are on
Yeah.
a slower pace, and because of what happened in their family line, or
Yep.
um, and that's what I really like about the people who come here, because it's so new to them. Not all of them, but some of them. It's so new to them that you're sort of like opening uh, a little door of
Yeah.
like, hey, this is possible as well. Hey, and I'm sort of connecting with my emotions again. Wow, that feels really, really good. Yeah. So, do everybody? I'm not sure if everybody should be on psychedelics to create that goal, or to move into that direction. Um, because for some people it really attracts to do psychedelics, and when they do it for the first time, they're like, yes. And I had the same. When I did this for the first time, I thought, yes, this is for me.
Yeah.
But there are also people who say, I'm completely fine with meditation, or I'm completely fine with breath work,
Hmm.
uh, or walking. I don't know, all sorts of things can. Everybody picks their own. I believe that becoming aware of what else is there, because we got so far away, with all the material stuff, and
Yeah.
all the things we think, and also, I mean, with all social media,
Hmm.
it's a great thing, because that's how we met.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really nice, and we're able to learn from each other and to connect with each other. Um, but it can also be used for other stuff, like distracting, or distraction. Um, so what the goal is, I hope it's just a movement in like, um, taking better care of nature, to be more aware, to connect, to face our maybe traumas in the family, um, to deal with that and to heal ourselves. That's an important one too. Yeah, so I believe, and by talking about it, gives me a good feeling. Like, yeah, I really believe that this is our goal. This is something we need to do. How do you see that?
I love it. It reminds me, know, I went ice skating with my daughter last week, and I'm not that great of an ice skater. I can stand up and like kind of shuffle across the ice a little bit, and like I'm getting better. And I remember I was standing by the side, and I was watching my daughter's. She's way better than me, and her friend are skating. They're going backwards, and I just looked around the ice, and there was old people, young people, heavy people, skinny people, all colors, and like some people were really fast, and some people were really slow. I just started laughing. I'm like, dude, this is our world. Like some people are really young and talented. Some people are like me and old and keep falling down. Like it's just such a good metaphor. Like I just look at the ice and I'm like,
Yeah,
this is all of us just trying to do our best job.
yeah, that's it.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's it.
the secret's
Yeah.
everywhere. You can see it everywhere in life if you just look. It's like, look, there it is. There we are. We're just doing it.
And do you believe, well, I love what you say about, yeah, we're just doing it. We're just doing it.
We're just
Yeah,
doing
we're
our
doing
best.
our
We're trying.
best. But, and do you believe that we have some sort of, I don't know, let's call it goal or life lesson or in our lives?
I think so. Yeah. I think we are. I think we're becoming something collectively. Like I think we've just moved through this incredible phase of consumption, like a caterpillar.
Mm,
And we're moving into something now. And if you look at the demographics alone, like there's just such this enormous group of baby boomers that came before us. And as they're moving on to whatever comes next, you can see the next generation breaking through the detritus of old ideas, flexing their wing, trying to figure out, like, look at this thing. What is this universal basic income thing? And like just testing these ideas of what is possible. And you can still hear, and on some level, you can see the unrealized dreams of those that are dying, just grasping, we got one more war in us, guys. Come on.
yeah.
Like, dude, that's a horrible idea. Like, but you can see us moving in that direction. And I think in Theogens specifically, they they reveal to us a wisdom that is for all of us, and it's there, and it's just revealed to you. If you think about the insights that you have had, or perhaps some of the people that have come to you or people you've spoken to, there's these flashes of insight that are revealed to you, and you realize there are these universal truths like, oh yeah, you know what, when I take part of this plant, it really helps me understand that I'm part of the whole. It's so weird that I could eat this vegetable and then I feel like it's talking to me, telling me how to be a better person in the environment I'm in. It's almost like I'm taking part of this. It's just this thing we're moving into, and it's ineffable. Like another thing is language, right? Like when you start taking these doses, whether it's 1 gram or a half a gram or high grams, you bump up against the ineffable. You can't explain it. There's no linguistic pathway, but you can see it, you can feel it, you can kind of act it out in a weird sort of way. That's the gravity that's pulling us towards it. We can't quite say it yet. We don't have a linguistic pathway, but we're definitely moving in that direction. And that's us as a whole. I think we each individual is part of the whole. And though we live our lives sometimes as if we are individuals, we're not. We're all pulling our weight and pulling this thing, whatever it is, into the next phase.
Yeah. No, love it, love it, love it. I can listen to this for hours. Love it. Yeah, and I remember also once during a psychedelic journey that I felt like, I was walking around outside and I was like, we're just energy and we're just all part of it, and nature is sort of uh yeah, is surrounding us and giving us so much, but is also sometimes thinking, oh my god, when are they going to get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody in his own pace, of course. But yeah, I totally, it totally resonates with me what you were saying, that and the way you say it is like, so you, I believe it's so beautiful with so much energy. But yeah, absolutely. I believe that too, that we're moving into a direction. And um, and I also believe in a way it's all, especially when we look at ourselves, that everything is all there already. The only thing is that we put so many layers on it, by growing up, but
Yeah.
also by people around us who are telling us that we should do it this way, or we should have
Mhm.
this, or we should look like this, or we should be like this. Um, that's all covering up what is already there. We all have all these beautiful qualities and all this love and beautiful energy in us. And I believe, so I'm wondering, if what do you think of that? But is that when we sort of get these layers off, it will really help us to move into that direction. Then we're going,
Yeah.
then we're there. And maybe it sounds a bit abstract, but yeah, I truly believe that when you get to the core, when you get to your true being, or your true self, then that's it. And of course, maybe, when people think, okay, so do I have to be always my true self? Not sure if it's possible. I
Yeah.
hope it is. I hope it is. Um, but maybe that's sort of wishful thinking. I don't know. It could be that we're always, because we build this ego, that it always be there. Maybe by taking these layers off, that our ego becomes smaller. Yeah, I think that that could be something, that our ego becomes smaller, and then our true self can be more present and become bigger. Maybe it's not so much in bigger and smaller, but well, for the ego, yes. Really nice talking to you, George. I love
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. We got a comment here that says, oh, all right. Where is that here? This one. Oh, it moved up. That's what happened here. It says, will the force overcome those folks trying to shape and alter the force? Yes. I think we will.
Um, and who are those folks? What do you think?
It's always them and they, right? And I
Mm,
think that them and they are us. They're just
mm,
people that are clinging on to that which they need to live. I think yeah, it's hard to I'm a big fan of panning back and listening to all the stories about who could be controlling things and why they're controlling them. Like, it's really fun and I enjoy that. But at the end of the day, all you can really control is yourself. And
mm.
a good way that I've found to do this too is, and I think psychedelics help, is that everybody you see is just a different version of you. And when someone makes you really mad, you should try to find out why they make you mad, because that's probably something you do. If you see everybody as a mirror, right? Like in the whole Jungian psychology of it, like
Yeah,
everyone's like a mirror for you. What do you think?
yeah, I think so too. Um, and I get the feeling that when there's a trigger, that there's a lesson, or there's sort of um, something is happening. Like, oh, you need to learn something here.
Yeah.
Um, but also what you said about, with the question, huh? I also believe that like the world I am in is much more on focusing on individual growth.
Yeah.
And I think certain parts in the world are so much more focused on the collective part. But I also believe like certain parts, so let's say um, I think they're also dealing with their traumas, and power is a big thing in certain, with certain people. um, and maybe they went through a lot of issues, that their ego became so big, that they're so much focused on,
Yeah.
okay, this is right. Um, so my hope and my ideal is that those people heal themselves as well at a certain point. And maybe it's wishful
Yeah.
thinking, but maybe like certain people are able to get away out of that situation, or out of a situation that is toxic or not good for them.
Yeah.
And they are able to move to a more individual part. But on the and maybe it's just an individual part to be able to heal themselves and then move into that force. um yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, or topic, but also difficult to give a straightforward answer to, I believe. But yeah, and then moving on to the triggers, absolutely, I think. And that's constantly, I think, in daily life. As soon as something is triggering you, then there's something to learn from. um what I usually do, because I have that too, of course, um what I do is try to step back a bit. And sometimes, like I was saying, if you sit in a
Yeah.
jar, you can't read the label. So I try to step back and think, okay, so what is annoying me right now? Or um, what does it say about me? Is it, that I want that too? Or is it, do I feel not seen? Or
Mm-hmm.
what part in me is trying to get some attention? That's I
Mm-hmm.
usually, but sometimes things happen fast and then I'm already into the reaction. But what I try to do is to become more aware of, like, okay, let's step back. What's happening here? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it brings up the idea of language. And then NC Native says, he says there are humans trying to shape how other humans think and do things. Are those controlling humans still part of the force moving towards a certain point, or would you say they are fighting that movement? Here's what I would say, NC. I would say that language, the world is made of language. And when you listen to the language that's put out in society, in culture, and think of the four first letters of the word culture. It's a cult. Like, we are living in this world that's an illusion. It's made of language. And there are tons of people desperately trying to control the narrative. Because when you control the narrative, you can control the world with which people live in. But each individual, this is what we were talking about earlier, and I think psilocybin and entheogens and psychedelics can do this, is they allow you to break free of the linguistic programming that has been given to you for the 15 years you went to school. Like, that's the default mode network. When we look at psychedelics, we see the default mode network is turned off in the brain. All this stuff, and see all of these marketing, propaganda, all of this stuff you see, this is the default mode network at work. Hey, stay in this lane, buy this car, buy this
Mm.
house, get this job. You're nothing unless you have this. Like, that's the default mode network. And it's so interesting that we can see it in our lives, and we can also see it in neurofeedback. When people take psilocybin or they take these different psychedelics, they see the default mode network shut off. And that allows you to make these new connections about, like, you know what? I kind of think I am enough just being who I am. I kind of think that maybe I should quit my job and love my wife and kid more. I kind of think that maybe I don't need to have all of this excess consumption. And by the
Mm.
way, how can a business talk about being environmentally friendly and they have a business model built on excess consumption? That's kind of weird, you know. Like, so NC, my idea is that it's all linguistics, and there are people, and there always have been, there will continue to be people that try to control your story, but don't let them. You control your story. And psychedelics can be a profound game changer in there. And I think
Abs-
a lot of that problem people have is because they're listening to everyone else's story, right? Stop living other people's lives and stories and just take one baby step in yours, and that step will fall away. It'll still be there. I mean, you can't get rid of it, but it'll fall away and be less meaningful.
Well said, George. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, anything else that you want to cover? I know I kind of went off on some tangents there, but yeah, got that going for us.
Yeah, good, I think.
Where can people find you? What do you have coming up, and what are you excited about?
So people can find me in the Netherlands, and our website is thematter.nl, and we're also on Instagram and LinkedIn. So people can find me there. So my last name is Van der Spek. Bit difficult to pronounce maybe for people, but so there they can find me. What am I excited about is well, it's summer is starting soon,
Mm,
and so I'm really excited about hosting a few retreats in the coming period. So we have one coming up next weekend, one the end of July. I'm also organizing a cannabis retreat in
oh,
August
nice.
for women, and so that will be really nice. And I'm excited about more and more people are opening up into working on themselves with psilocybin, and connecting with their true self again, because there's so much happening, there's so much going on that is distracting us for what is really important.
Yep.
So that's what I'm excited about. And like I said, and I love doing this, being able to be a part of it. It's like magical to see taking people steps to move on, or to do what's really important for them, or let go of certain patterns. And
Hmm.
for me, that's like, I'm so well, not honored, but humble, and really happy that I'm able to do this work. Yeah. And to introduce it to people, and to spread also the word. I mean, that's it for me, spread the word, because this is like creating possibilities
I
that
think it's yeah, it's beautiful. I think you're good at it, and I think you have a very unique way of understanding patterns. And just in our conversation today, I'm moved by your word choice about being humble and staying away from being honored. Like that's such a cool way to do it. I appreciate. Thank you for doing that. I think it speaks volumes of your intentions. So thank you for that.
Mm. Well, thank you for mentioning that.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, we'll hang on briefly afterwards. I just want to talk to you briefly afterwards. But to everybody
Yeah.
who hung out with us today, Griggs, NC, Gregory, thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out with us, spending some time. Go down to the show notes, check out Marieke, check out what she's got going on over there. Reach out to her. She's a splendid individual, and she's got a ton of knowledge, and I'm sure she'd like to talk to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we got for today. I hope you have a beautiful day. Aloha.
Thank you.